Well, good afternoon, and I'm going to try and make this fairly brief, but during this, anyway, we've got this COVID-19 situation. Everybody's in it together, so to speak. I'm okay. I write a few little comments, as people know, and I've got my group that's heading towards 3,000 people on Facebook, which is quite amazing to me. But still, I think part of my, or at least a major part of the purpose, shall we say, of the group is to inform each other of various trips we can do. Now, I started off on as the $2.50 travel seniors card group, but of course it's expanded well beyond that. It's any travel by any means, public transport, in other words, air, rail, bus, ferry, and it's to offer hints and ideas and whatever you on travel. Now, one of those I'm going to discuss briefly today is the various routes by rail and mostly by bus too, between Sydney and Melbourne, and I'll mention other services at another time. So we'll just concentrate on that and subject, or shall we say, right now. Now, there's a great disruption occurring in that there's no passenger trains between Albury and Melbourne, even though there's a freight train service, because of what has happened with that XPT crash, or really derailed, and that's another story in itself. Human error on that one, but luckily no passengers were killed, but two staff members were back in February. There's that problem, and there's also what they call the mud holes, which is the many speed restrictions where the sleepers were inserted from the sides rather than lifting the whole section of track and putting new ballast and new cross ties, as the Americans call it, and relaying the rails. That would provide a firm and steady base. So let's get right on to what they're doing at the moment. You can, of course, go Sydney to Albury and on to Melbourne on a bus connection by overnight or by daylight XPTs services, and right now you can't, because there's only a handful of people travelling on them. But when this is over, let's just consider it to be at a time when this is over. That'll be restored at some point as well, right through. But at least, and there are a number of other options to get between Sydney and Melbourne, but I'll give you a handful of side trips that you can do as well that make the journey much more interesting, and break your journey and see other places. One that I got on my list to do is to go down to Sydney to Cootamundra on the it's on the Melbourne XPT actually. Get off and get the bus that goes down through Gundagai and Tumut and out to Batlow, and the bus actually ends up going to Tumbarumba. I wanted to go to Batlow, and then the following day, that goes on 3 days a week, so the following day you can get the bus from Batlow. It goes back through Tumut. Admittedly, it goes almost back towards Cootamundra, but it turns off and goes back round to Wagga. And part of the idea of that, of course, naturally, is to connect to go to Melbourne, and there are other possibilities, other trips you can do. So I want to use Batlow as a stopping off point at some time, because there used to be a train service to Batlow, as some people in the group, or many might know, and ended it a long time ago. It's actually about, I think, the 50s, or maybe into the 60s. It might have gone through to the 60s. Another one is you can go down to Canberra or vice versa. This works out quite well vice versa, incidentally. You can travel across to the coast and through Bairnsdale and Melbourne. Now, but I know the opposite direction is probably better. That on a Thursday, and these things, some of these services, as many people might know, only run about 3 days a week. But on a Thursday, you can leave Melbourne in the morning by train, go to Bairnsdale and get on the bus, go down through Orbost and get out at Bombala. Now, Bombala used to have a train service, and I rode it, and it was mixed trains, and there was even a pay bus used to be used on the line. Now, on a Friday morning, this only works once a week, there's a bus from Bombala to Canberra. Now, of course, a person could spend a few hours in riding the Canberra Light Rail, for example, which I propose to do. Then an afternoon train to Goulburn, staying over and you get that for $2.50, Canberra to Goulburn. Actually, Bombala to, I'm not sure if you get all the way to Canberra, but have to check up on that. But irrespective, certainly get Canberra to Goulburn, and then the following day there's the morning train out of Goulburn. You use your Opal card to go to Sydney. There are 3 routes, by the way, that connect the Western Line with the Southern Line. So if a person was wanting to do a variety of ways to get to Melbourne, one of them is to go out to Bathurst and stay overnight and get the bus from Bathurst, goes down to Cootamundra, and then goes through Cowra, I think, down to Cootamundra. Anyway, from there you go to Albury and Melbourne. Another route goes from Dubbo down to Cootamundra, and a third one connects up from Condobolin down through Lake Gajalago, Wyalong and Temora, and into Cootamundra, which I've actually done in the reverse direction. Quite a long route, that one, but it's worth doing. And then you're looking at a couple of little known ones as well. For example, they're put on, and I challenge you to get timetables for some of these things. There's a bus service from Mildura to Broken Hill. It happens to run on the right day, on a Monday, for example. The following day you can get the train, and it only runs once a week, from Broken Hill, and you go to Bathurst. That costs you $2.50 for the bus from Mildura to Broken Hill, and another $2.50 by train from there to Bathurst. And you stay overnight, and you get, there's 2 what they call Bathurst Bullet. There's the early one. It was just too early for me, but there's one at around 7:25 or so in the morning, and it goes to Sydney. There are a couple of others, as I said, that are slightly obscure, but you can go up through places like Bendigo and across to, you can go to, end up through Deniliquin, for example, via Echuca. And there's a service across to Wagga, and there's another service that goes from Echuca across to Albury. And those are some of the examples that I'm giving you between Sydney and Melbourne that are quite considerable variations on the route. One or two of you could suddenly say, oh, but there's such and such. Well, there might be, but I'm just giving you a pretty basic outline of what is there. So the clue is to study the train link timetables. These days it requires you to go online and write things down and look at it and bring it up on the computer and say, oh, you can do this on, this goes 3 days a week, and does, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever the days of the week it might be. Be very careful about the connecting days and times. Some of these services I've been discussing, like one of them goes just once a week, which is that up, goes 3 times a week from Mildura to Broken Hill, but only once a week with the train from Broken Hill to Bathurst and goes on to Sydney, of course, but I'm just saying on the $2.50 ticket. Alternatively, a person can stay overnight in Broken Hill for whatever nights they want, really, but you can get the bus out of there every day at a crazy early hour of 4:15 in the morning. But that goes through Cobar and Dubbo and down to Bathurst, and that'll cost another $2.50. Magic, isn't it? It's wonderful. So I just thought, and also around the coast, I mentioned to you around the coast, Bairnsdale, and another one is you can get a bus to go to Bega, and then of course you have to travel, or you can travel up through Canberra, or you can go right along the coast to Nowra and get a train from Nowra to Sydney. So I just thought I'd put all that into the mix, shall we say, and we can talk about various subjects at various times and answer that on the group or on my Facebook if you like, and so forth. And you know, as I said, we'll be on to various issues at different times, so thanks for viewing on that.